remember NCL was Beyonce.
Yeah. Responsibility area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
People always misunderstand my name.
In the first row, like
Oh yeah. Oh, I've been like PB and Alex and I don't know. People. I'm like, it's not that hard, right?
All the way.
Well, maybe not like John, but it's.
I'm scared. Camera makes me nervous too. Oh, Dr. Professor Yori Kadam? Should we?
All right. You know, it was just like, I knew it was somebody that didn't know all of us. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started since it is just past 1 o'clock. If you haven't had a chance to sign in, please do so on your way out. There's the sign-in sheet over here on this back table. So it's my pleasure today to introduce Rajiv Ranjan, and he will be talking to us about challenges of L2 Hindi writing. So help me welcome him to today's professional development series.
Thank you. Thanks so much for including me in professional development. Is it okay? So what I want to talk about is challenges in writing. So I'm recapping a little bit. I remember August 2010 when I formally embarked on a trip of teaching Hindi or Urdu as a second language in my year of Fulbright. And before that, I have never taught Hindi or even thought about teaching Hindi or Urdu as a foreign language. And this has been 9 years since then. And it's a new field. I was trained in a theoretical linguistics, basically morphology or morphosyntax and syntax. But teaching Hindi as a foreign language was a great experience and turning point in my career. So after that Fulbright year, I became a graduate student in second language acquisition. And even though my doctorate degree and my dissertation is on acquisition of ergative case by L2 Hindi Urdu learner, by L1 English speaker, during that training, I had a chances to work with second language speaking, second language writing, second language curriculum design and cultural teaching and all the other stuff that SLA could include as a field. During that time, I also took courses in second language writing, and I thought, because teaching, and we'll have a group of graduate students sitting together and saying, you know what, in one semester, we could do this much. Spanish graduate teaching assistant will come and say, one semester they're speaking at the sentence level. I was also exposed to ACTFL that give you proficiency test, and I was in a conversation or in a communication with lots of different commonly taught languages, graduate assistant and professors, and less commonly taught languages. And what I really wanted to do, because I'm still a learner, I want to improve my teaching skill too, not as a researcher, but as a teacher too, I want to develop. And for me, the challenge was script or teaching a script. So I did a couple of research with the thought that how I can go forward in this field. And the result of I'm going to present 2 papers in a very short time. And one paper is published in this journal. This is the opening chapter of the paper that I'll present. But I'll start with the paper which is on Think Aloud protocol, and that is under review and for publication too. So my journey started with this background question that I asked to my colleagues and friends or to myself, that what are the challenges in teaching non-script or non-Roman language, just teaching itself, and how the different stages of pedagogical development that we have, like grammar translation, what was the role of teaching writing there, because that was just the grammar and translation. And when it becomes audio-visual, that was high time for that. What is the status of writing or teaching writing? And in communicative language teaching, which we very much focus on, what's the role and how much we include writing in our teaching? And so other question is, like everybody we talk, like by first semester and the focus is on communication, you are speaking very well, but are you writing that well too? And is the proficiency, oral proficiency, is a predictor of writing proficiency? And if not, then shouldn't be the different guideline and outcomes statement for LCTL and commonly taught languages. And we always talk about the heritage, and we in our LCTL we get lots of heritage students, and when it comes to oral proficiency we treat them differently, but how do we treat them when it comes to writing? And should we treat them as we treat them based on oral proficiency? And then if these all are the challenges, as a teacher, what do I do in a classroom to develop writing or teach writing? And so all the tools, corporate world, there are lots of books and materials and everything for other languages or commonly taught languages, which we, as a less commonly taught language, we definitely do not have tools and research and even good textbook, if I may say, with all respect to all the authors. Then the question is writing a stepchild in language teaching? And that moves me to challenges in writing that I was exploring. And I started with the language switch kind of thing. So I asked these questions, basically here 6 questions in the paper that is going to be published, but today I'll just focus on these 4 research questions. That does it cause language switch, or what are the effect of Devanagari script while writing in L2, or does L2 Hindi oral proficiency reflects on L2 Hindi writing proficiency, and what are the, does Hindi script cause deficiency in writing proficiency? So how did I go about this research? It is really hard to find, and at that time I was thinking about think aloud protocol and pre-questionnaire before the task and post-questionnaire after the task and stuff. And it was hard to find a participant, given our enrollment number at the university level, that somebody who has a higher proficiency, at least oral proficiency, and willing to sit and write in front of camera. So I could find one participant, and she was 35 at that time of the research, and she studied 1 year formal Hindi, and then she went to study abroad for 2 months or 8 weeks. Then she came back and she took third year Hindi for a semester. Then she went back to Delhi, which is a Hindi spoken region, where she did her master's and spoke Hindi around. And then she reported that when she was in Delhi, she also worked for Children magazine and in Hindi. And then what she said, that she would write the story and then it will be translated by her colleagues in Hindi, and then she will work whether the message is transformed very well in cross-culturally or not. And then she also knew Hebrew script while she learned all these languages. How did I do the research? This is the methodology. We did pre-questionnaire, then think protocol, think aloud protocol, and then retrospective interview and post-questionnaire to collect data. But the main data was collected by think aloud, and this was the setting. So this is like a typical classroom. I used the this doc-cam where she put her pencil and paper and she wrote, and that was displayed on the bigger screen, and I recorded the bigger screen. And she was trained for think aloud protocol, and every 7 seconds she is silent, not talking. I'll have to little bit post like keep talking. So that is like a typical think aloud protocol. So what I want to do is just show you what it looked like when she did this study, and I want to present the challenges. But before I go present you the challenges, I want you to notice that she wrote almost 445 words in 1 hour 23 minutes, but she out of 445, she added 140 words in last 20 minutes while she was reviewing. And I want you to see that even if she knew the word, but the script itself caused the problem. So the example that I'm showing you here is the letter Shra. So that's the name of an actor. So the prompt was that you have watched a Hindi movie, write a letter to your friend to explain what did you like this, like what are the movie about and why not you like this movie. So she wrote about that, and just so you see, I have also subtitled it at the best of my ability.
Uska Nam Shri Devi Shri Kesa Shri Kesalik. I forgot. Okay, Shri
So she goes back to the textbook. So then she goes back to the dictionary online. So I have given her everything that she can use while writing that naturally you use while you write.
That's not the right word. Skip it. It's something. Davy. It's gonna bother me. I've gotta find it. I guess it kind of means like mister. So child. Mister in English. I'll see the letter. No. Oh, ha, ha, ha.
So she found that later, Shri, and she says, oh, ha, 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 ha. So this is what she was looking for, right? The idea is that she knew the word, she knew how it looks like, but she couldn't write it. And she knew some first stage was she wanted to skip it, like why to break the chain of thought, because the task was not to write correctly, task was to write a whole letter. But she also knew that this name Sri Devi is going to come a lot in this story, because she's writing a story of a Hindi movie, English to English, where the lead cast was Sri Devi. So the idea is that she knew what's going to, so she has planned everything, but her planning didn't work in terms of writing because the script is causing a problem. And 1 hour 23 minutes long this video, you can see I analyzed it everything, and I can trace out maybe 15 evidences where she is struggling because of the script. Not only that, for example, A sound can give you a different meaning versus E sound versus O sound. So if I'm saying ka, this is for masculine singular, ki for masculine, sorry, for feminine, and ko is dative case marking. So all those little bit of mistakes in script itself writing can change the meaning of everything. And if learners do not get that, then they're also not producing, because as a teacher I don't see what he or she is thinking. When we grade that, we see a mistake. We don't see that it's just the script mistake or grammar mistake and all those things. So I will not spend too much time in showing this video because I have other things to talk about. But what I want to show is, so this was the prompt that I already shared. The third question, that what challenge does Devanagari script pose while writing in L2 Hindi? As I said, 485 words were produced in 123 minutes, but 140 words were added while editing. So when she's not thinking about grammaticality and script, she just wanted to complete the story, she added more. And like the letter like shra and other morphosyntactically crazy script can change the meaning, and those are the evidence that troubled her. Even if she spoke Hindi very well, she spent in India 2 years, and she wrote for kids' book, oral proficiency was great, but in 1 hour she struggled, and that you can watch in whole video. Second, does Devanagari script cause language switch? And what are the other things? So deciding, and when you are doing the self-talk, and there are lots of other things like decision making and meta-linguistic talk causes the language switch. So when we are thinking that writing is second language, you are thinking in that language, that's not happening even for that oral proficient participant. Does L2 Hindi oral proficiency reflects on L2 Hindi writing proficiency? Of course not. So you can't say that oral proficiency is equal to writing proficiency. And does Hindi script cause a deficiency in writing proficiency? Yes. Now the question is, I did this research, so what? So what I'm going to do about that? Yes, these are the facts. I concluded, woohoo, first year PhD. Now so what? So I said what a teacher can do. So these were the little bit takeaway that script causes problems in writing. Check, yes, it does. It hinders flow in thoughts and increase cognitive load. Yes, it does. But what are the teacher's role in fixing that? What I'm going to do about it? And then we know that while we are teaching communicative language, style, pedagogy, whatever, we always feel that the homework and the feedback on the homework was enough for writing. And then we thought, like, what kind of feedback? Because my feedback is definitely not working. And in second language writing research, if you talk to our own Charlene Polio, she will tell you that there's a huge debate about feedback. And when I start doing research on writing, I read Charlene a lot, and the discussion that feedback is beneficial or not beneficial, and if it is beneficial at all, what kind of feedback is beneficial. So kind of crunching everything, I get to know that indirect feedback on writing corrective feedback or dynamic writing corrective feedback is beneficial. So what does that all mean? So I try to do the other research on feedback, and that's in this one. So I'll move on. These are the research questions that I thought. Is writing corrective feedback beneficial for L2 Hindi learners? Or what are the effects of writing dynamic corrective feedback on writing sample of L2 Hindi learners? And what are its effects on complexity, accuracy, and fluency? And what's its effects on overall in a delayed task? So what I did, I chose 15 L2 Hindi participants in 11th week of second semester of first year Hindi, 5 male, 10 female students at a large university in Midwest. You know where that is. Age range was 17 to 32. And before this study, students were given direct corrective feedback on their written homework. So I just, if you made a mistake, I'll cut it and give you the right correct form. And the whole thing was based on a skill acquisition theory. So like recently we have SLS Colloquium, and the keynote speaker was talking about skill acquisition theory too, that you have you start with demonstrative knowledge, and then you have a procedural knowledge, and then you have a automaticity. So you demonstrate, or you tell them what's the rule, and then you make them practice, and then practice makes them automatic. And she was connecting it with the different kinds of working memory. But I use the skill acquisition theory by De Keyser. People do not like this theory because it gives you like a learning language, like learning swimming, and if you know the rule, then you can practice it and you become a good swimmer. But that's basically, if you ask Chomsky, and they would say that this is not how it works. It's like it's not stimulus response kind of thing. But what is dynamic written corrective feedback? 3 main features: that feedback should be meaningful, it should be timely and consistent and manageable, and learners were trained to interpret the indirect feedback. So if there is a spelling mistake, I would not correct it, I'll just underline it and write SPL. If there's a gender mistake, I'll write G. If there is an agreement mistake, I write AGR, and learners were trained that how to interpret those feedback. So first of all, training happened. Then I screened a movie. Then the 5 drafts. So the first draft, I took it as a pre-task, and then when they'll write for 20 minutes, and then I'll collect the paper and I'll give them back next day, and they are given 10 minutes to go through the feedback, because generally I also learned that a student, when you return the homework, they do not care. Homework done, you get the grade and no learning happening. So I specifically give them 10 minutes to review and then 10 minutes peer review. So they'll share the script and they'll say like what are the mistakes are there and how they can highlight with each other. Up to the 4th draft, and then after a week I asked them to rewrite again the same thing, and it was a delayed task after a week. So that was my 5th draft. If you see about the T unit, from the first draft, 2nd draft was okay because it was just my feedback, and then they wrote again. But then a peer reviewed happened from here and it increased, and then the post delayed or the delayed, the 5th draft, it goes down. So T unit is like number of sentences in a whole paragraph, so tense unit. So how many tensed verb they have used. Words in a T unit, number of words per sentence, so that has also increased, and that has even in a delayed one, it was higher than the 5th draft. And I don't know what happened there. Maybe they have acquired more words during those weeks while they're writing, and because they're thinking about a particular topic, so maybe the words they can add more. Error-free T unit, the sentence without any mistake. And that you will see that also there is a development, but then delayed, there is falling back down to the downward. In terms of accuracy, you see the accuracy meaning the overall, how many words they have, like how many words they wrote versus how many words they wrote correctly. You will see again there is a development, then there is a fall. That's a typical learning curve. And fluency is also likewise done, how many number of words they wrote in one stroke in 20 minutes, and that I used. It seems very good, like, oh my God, they're learning. And of course, after a week, they'll fall down a little bit. But the question that I ask is that result shows development. Yes, I did a great research, but is this development sustainable? Because what I'm doing, and this kind of research has been done on many other languages, where they say, ask them to write on the same topic over and over again, and this is typical skill acquisition theory, that they write it and then you give feedback and they write it again on the same topic. What if I change the topic? Did they learn anything? And if I can tell you, while I was analyzing data, if I write AGR, agreement problem, at one place, next time in the next draft, there is no AGR mistake at that point of time or that place on that sentence, but the same problem or same mistake they made in the other. So direct feedback or indirect feedback, I don't see any development, because if you are trying to draw attention that they're making mistakes on agreement, then why they're making the same mistakes in the 5 sentences after? So should I just teach the grammar? Then my generative kicked in and says, there is always missing surface inflection hypothesis because rules are easy to acquire. So if I'm speaking English and I'm making mistakes in my articles and S and ES, it doesn't mean that I don't know what the specificity or definiteness is. I'm a linguist. I can explain what is definiteness versus specificity, or what is habitual versus progressive, but I'm not manifesting the morphology while I'm speaking English. And how can you teach that? Will you teach me by explaining the grammar, or will you teach me by showing the manifestation that this is what you missed? So all these questions, when it comes to language acquisition in terms of writing too, not just in terms of speaking, in terms of writing became important to me, that then why I'm giving feedback at all. Then both research shows that L2 Hindi learner struggles in writing because of script. Script hinders to determine errors. So like when I'm writing and I say that Ram is masculine and it goes with the verb which is feminine marking, khati, for example, and khata should be the correct one. I don't know whether they are making mistakes because they don't know the gender, or they don't know how to write that. So I, as a researcher or as a teacher, is confused because I can see the problem from a researcher's perspective and also as a teacher's perspective, that what would be the problem there. If they are not agreeing object-verb agreement, for example, if you say Rajiv ne roti, and so Rajiv is masculine and bread is object, and verb would agree with object in Hindi, which is unlike English, how would you determine that learner has not acquired the object-verb agreement, or learner has not acquired the gender marking, or learner is just simply not writing correctly? So those are the questions that currently I am exploring by using eye tracking and stuff, that if they are looking back to object, then I can say gender is missing. If they are looking back to subject, then I can conclude that object-verb agreement is missing and other stuff. But, and I just gave you the example that how this little stroke can change the meaning too. So extra line here, possessive marker for masculine, extra stroke plus short curve from the right side, it's possessive marker for feminine, and line and one stroke on towards left, not completely like an umbrella, it's just the dative subject or definite object or indirect object marker in Hindi. And if you miss even if a little bit, you are totally not, I would not use the word incomprehensible, but you are not correct. Okay. So the question that I present to you that helped me after all these two research that I did, what I found, how to best teach non-Roman script. And if you have any expertise, that I open the floor for discussion and help me with addressing these kind of questions, that what do you do for learning foreign language script? And how do you incorporate writing in your pedagogy? What are the activities that students do in class which encourages or enforce learning script? Is communicative language teaching approach a problem for learning non-Roman script? How can a non-Roman script language compete with the Roman script language for L1 English learners in terms of proficiency? So when you have a French, Spanish, and any language which has a script which is Roman, even if it is little bit, there is a diacritics and stuff, you can actually in the first day, if I go to a French class and the very first day I get a textbook and I can, I won't understand a word, but I can say je, me, I might have a bad pronunciation. Spanish I can say como estás, but I might have a bad pronunciation, but I am not threatened, like it's completely, letters are dancing. But in Hindi classroom you give them a perfect book, which inshallah one day we'll have a very good textbook, and they don't understand. And what you are expecting to compete with the department or somewhere there, the outcomes are being shared that you have to do this in this semester. And even if I am trying there, what I'm missing that the overall goal as a teacher, I feel that I should make learners as an individual investigator, that if they learn language at the university for 2 years, how are they going to keep learning when they graduate? Because language learning is also not like a science that after 2 years you have all the formulas wrote memorized and then you are good at that. Language learning is lifetime like you evolve, you live that language, and if you are skipping away from letters, then you are not able to read anything for your fun. So reading for fun doesn't happen in non-Roman script. If you are not reading much, then you are not able to acquire the vocabulary that people say in pedagogy, that give vocabulary in a different context and it will be great for vocabulary acquisition. They can't read anything, so how can I present the vocabulary in a different context? So these are the challenges. So why don't we take like one by one and share our thoughts? That's how I'm going to go about it. So how do you do, what do you do for learning foreign language script? If anybody, yeah. Yeah.
Use the word script to mean what we use to say spelling, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference in the literature between using script
And spelling. I would say that when I'm saying script, I'm not talking about the word level. If you make mistakes at the word level, then you are making mistakes in spelling. But the script itself is a challenge. So script causes spelling mistakes, the spelling mistakes causes grammatical mistakes, and then it might cause comprehensibility problem. So the very basic thing is script. So if anybody wants to share some thought about what do you do for learning foreign language, like I know also, yeah.
Rajiv, I'm just like now curious because like, how do you tackle the problem in your class? Because
Yeah.
you have been talking about it. But
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so you have probably heritage and non-heritage, but you have then, okay, you're focusing on a certain amount, on a certain target of, I guess, oral proficiency.
Yeah.
My first inclination would be you have separate lines.
Yeah.
With separate lines, then you would have in commonly taught languages, because you're at least familiar with the script. So how do you approach it? How do you
Yeah, so
tackle the problem?
yeah, that's a good question. It seems like now there's no need of discussion. You can just ask me questions. I'm here to learn. This part of where I was going to learn from all of you. But if I can say, I do not have the best way to tackle. I don't know if I am using the best way. But how I do it, like very first day, I gave them a chart. So in Hindi, scripts are very scientifically organized thanks to Panini. You have a place of articulation and manner of articulation, and this is how it is organized. Vowels are different, separate, 12 vowel sounds, plus 34 consonant sounds, and altogether we have 46 letters in alphabet. And they have an independent and dependent vowel. So if the consonant is getting attached with the vowel, then the vowel shape would change. And if the vowel is completely coming independent, then it's a different form altogether. What I do in a very first week or very first day, I gave them after like basic introduction, because I have to teach from the communicative approach because I work at MSU. But so what I do, I just give them a list of letters and say, go through that, kind of practice writing, and the sounds are there given adjacent to that. And maybe first day we review we enchant like a drill method in the beginning of the class, like the first day. And then I give them a workbook where there is a space given. And please know that in Hindi, it's not like Chinese that you have to use the stroke in a right direction. You can write anyways, it has to look like that shape, basically. So first week, I just asked them to write all the letters in the space given or workbook kind of thing. But for 6 weeks, I would say that for 6 weeks, I go in a class, and the first 10 minutes, I ask them, take a piece of paper and write down all the letters that you have learned. So it's completely like rote memorizing the letter and a stroke, and 6 weeks. But then what happens, I would realize that maybe in 6 weeks they know all the letters. But what happens that when you have strong morphosyntax feature when it comes in a further level of the like 7th week when they are learning imperative. So for example, you have in imperative we have 3 different levels of you. So totally informal, then the friendly level, and then respectful level. So if the verb is khana, like to eat, you chop the part of to, so that becomes just eat, becomes the order. So kha na, you chop the na part, and kha is just order, kha. But if you're using for your friend, then you add o sound to that kha. So khao. And then for respectful, you add ie, so khaiye. Right, so kha has an explicit a marking, so that's their writing would be different. But if you have a verb like likhna, kha has no vowel marking, shwa is inherently built in all consonant that we know, then it has to be marked on kha, and those kind of a writing problem, so even if they know whole script, when it comes to writing and conjugating with the vowels and consonant given the different morphosyntactic features, they still struggle up to the 2nd and 3rd year. I have to still see one student, I'm doing everything for teaching the way I teach, that I would not say that not any student have learned writing, but there are students who learn, but there are students who still struggle in their 3rd year when it comes to writing. So one semester I also did like the writing practice. One day we just write. That didn't help either, because how many words you can write? Then I thought maybe 1,000 words, which are mostly used, then we learn the writing of that first, and then here and there they learn new nouns and stuff, they can make mistakes. Plus, auditory system doesn't help. So here in this video, the word kalakar and kalakar, do you hear the difference in sound? Kalakar, kalakar. So kalakar is an artist, kalakar doesn't mean anything. Bhai and bai, bai is prostitute, bhai is brother. So when they can't hear the difference between the bhai and bai, because all the voiced aspirated sound in English, in Hindi, is hard for L1 English speaker to even hear. So ka, kha, ga, gha, you can't hear the difference between ga and gha. Cha, cha, ja, jha, ja and jha, hard to define. Ta, tha, da, dha, da and dha are different or are problematic. So all those auditory, like because you are not listening well, that's why you are not writing well. So those are the challenges too. And is any textbook address that problem? No. Any material that we are using and developing, are we addressing that problem? No. Any online jobs are doing, online people are doing any job? No, because there is not much money in L2 Hindi Urdu, right? So it comes to teacher like us and a colleague like you to sit together, break head and scratch and figure out what to do.
So
Yeah.
with Hindi,
Mhm.
when you're writing it, the sounds do or the letters correspond with sounds.
Yes.
Okay, so that's very different than, I guess I would say than maybe Chinese, where you have to memorize what a symbol is and things like that.
Yeah.
And then, if I'm correct, also in Korean, they correspond to certain sounds, right?
It's same as the Hindi.
The same as in Hindi?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's completely phonetic. So you have to hear well too.
You see, in Hebrew, the issues are different.
Yeah.
It's not similar to Hindi. I think in that sense, it's more similar to learning. For me, learning English, the English alphabet was easier. It was not too difficult. Coming from knowing how to read and write in Hebrew, because the basic principles are the same. You have some letters for sounds and some letters for vowels, and you kind of deal with it. What does happen in Hebrew is that we don't have vowels in the word.
Yeah.
And so students have to learn.
Yeah.
And they make mistakes.
Yeah.
Now the question is it okay for them to make mistakes? And the answer is yeah. It's okay for them to mistake. Even sometimes if the word for anashim and anasim, there's one letter there that makes a difference. It's the shin. So it's a sh sound, and sometimes it could be a s sound. And when students read anasim, it means rapists, and when they read anashim, it means men.
Yeah. So yeah, very close. Yeah.
So you know, it's a problem, especially in this day and age. But again, I'm not sure that for me this actually represents a serious issue.
Does it cause the
Because
comprehensibility
when
problem?
they read it out loud, they make a mistake, so they make a mistake and I correct it. But when they read a paragraph, or when they need to write a paragraph, does this stop them from being able to express themselves, even with some mistakes, or being able to understand the paragraph, at least the gist of the paragraph, with some mistakes here and there? So the question is, what level of perfection
True.
is seek?
Yeah.
And again, to me, that perfection is not so important as it is important for me, for students to be able to know that they can use the language for meaningful activities in their lives, to do things that is meaningful for them in their lives. And so, the question of accuracy and making a mistake, that's how we learn, right?
True. Yeah. Yes, sir.
How does the input on computers work? So there's handwriting, of course, and there's writing, writing on the computer, and it's different in different languages, right?
True.
And there are different ways of inputting that. We watched one of the students there actually, right, with a translator where she clicked on it.
She was clicking the...
Are there different formats? What are the ways that Hindi native speakers would use the computer to write versus handwriting?
True. So when I write, and this is leading me towards the kind of a sociolinguistic questions about which is not related to English-speaking country very much, but the country like India, we have a linguistic identity problem related to Hindi and Urdu. So it's the same language with two different scripts and two different countries, right? So let's take the word zarur. that zarur is from zuad, from Arabic, which is borrowed, come to Hindi. So the crash course of Hindi Urdu. In the Mughal Empire, the Mughals started hiring in their army the local people, those who speak different landscape languages like Awadhi, Bhojpuri, Maghi, Mathili. They joined the army and they started learning, started a Pidgin or Creole, like developing a kind of a mixture language, and they added lots of Persian and Arabic word in that, and then they also borrowed from the local language, which is a descendant of Sanskrit. So it becomes like a kind of a hybrid child of a different languages, and that's called Hindustani, right? And then 1947 happened. Not just the good news that India got independent, but the bad news that India got divided, where Pakistan announced that we are Urdu speaker and we borrowed the Arabic script, whereas India said that we are a secular country, but they killed all the local dialects because they wanted to make Hindi as a national, building a nation as a national language, right? So India wanted one national flag, one national animal, one national stupidity, one national language. Thanks to Tamilian, they revolted that, like, why Hindi should be a national language? And so, well, because many people speak that language. And then they said, like, the donkeys are more than horses in India. Should donkey be a national language? No. So they said, okay, we do not have national language. So all the dialects of Hindi are still dialects and they're not flourishing very well, and Hindi become the official language of India. But the challenge comes here. Because you share the word which is also descending from Arabic and Persian, and you are using it in Hindi. So now when you are typing in Hindi on a computer, I can show you like how do I type by using Barha software or Google input tools. The sound that needed the little dot underneath a letter is not there in that writing system. So when I'm teaching my Hindi student zarurat, then I have to teach them jarurat. So the z sound is not there when you're writing. And when I'm teaching, so I'm saying zarurat, and the students see jarurat, and they say, Rajiv, you are saying different and it's written different. I can't type that. so those are the other problems and socio-linguistic problem that we face. So so people understand that you are writing and you are using Hindi script, so those nuktas would be gone, but a native speaker would understand, not the learner. So in terms of comprehensibility, when you are reading, and so it's all about the priorities. What is your priority? Do you want your student to not writing correctly, just reading and speaking correctly? That's a whole different story.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, there are levels of perfection that you can expect.
Yeah.
Also from native speakers that write in their native tongue.
Mm-hmm.
If you teach American students in American to do, and they write in American, they make many mistakes too. But again, I think that the question is a question of practicality.
Mm-hmm.
First, to answer your, can non-Roman script language compete with
Roman script language
for L1
English learners
in terms of proficiency? Why should we be in a competition at all?
Yeah.
Is this a competition?
Because we are reviewed at the same level.
Well, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily,
No?
because what I do at the end of 2 years of Hebrew, Arabic speakers can maybe learn to do after 4 years, because it's a much more difficult language to learn. So you cannot, I think looking at a case-by-case basis is much better than trying to see if we can compete or compare. But again, it's a question of, you don't want to make people, to allow people to make mistakes that would make them look stupid or sound stupid or say things that they don't want to say.
Yeah.
That's for sure, and that's worth correcting. But again, the question is my goal as a language teacher that my students learn the language to the best, as close to perfectly as possible? Is my goal for my students to be able to use the language as well as possible for their own needs afterwards? Or is my goal for my students to learn the language as close to an Israeli as I can? Because all these three things are different, right? Because people in Israel don't speak and don't write in correct Hebrew necessarily all the time.
Yeah.
So is it okay for me to allow students, for example, in Hebrew, you have masculine and feminine numbers, right?
Yeah.
So numbers that work with feminine nouns and numbers that work with masculine nouns, okay? Israelis make mistakes in numbers all the time. I correct my students here all the time.
Even native speakers do make mistakes in Hindi.
That's the point. People make those mistakes. Is it okay for me to say, okay, you know, that's a mistake that native people do too. So maybe, you know, it's okay to let go. I don't know the answer. I know what's important for me at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no experience with this, so I'm just talking out.
That's good because I have an outside perspective on that.
And I have some experience with how children learn how to read and write Dutch. And I know there are two main approaches, and I think that for English and German probably as well is more like the analytic approach that you described. You learn the phonemes and the graphemes, and you add them, and the holistic approach more. You learn them recognizing words and how words are written. And so this ties to me also very much into the question, how do you combine the writing with the reading? Because looking at your last question, writing to learn is also like you can incorporate many ways of the script in how you teach. In, for example, if you have like, okay, brother or prostitute, definitely show in the Hindi the two words how they are being written. So work on different levels of recognizing the words so that they can incorporate and build a kind of like image of what does this word look like and help them segment it. Okay, so the B and the P, they are a little bit different. So it's on all those levels, working, integrating, reading, from starting to write just a word. And I agree with you, I think it's, if when I heard you that you're already in week 7, you start on the morphosyntax of writing, I think, whoa. Probably I would just like, I would be happy if they write the cat is in the tree and disregarding whatever it's passive, masculine, feminine, and then just get the stems of the words.
Cat I'm sure that the cat in Hindi is either masculine or feminine, depends on the cat.
Yeah, well, the word is what? No, so.
Yes. In Hebrew, the female cat and the masculine cat.
Yes.
Yeah, then even shoes are female shoes and male shoes, right? So. If you're beaten hardly, that's the masculine shoes. If you're beaten slowly, then so these.
I don't know. It's you're thinking about learning phase. It's a developmental phase. Of course, you would encourage it to do it, and you would give feedback on it.
Yeah.
But basically, you would not expect them yet to do it correctly. Yeah, perhaps easy agreement rules. Yes, you can start focusing on that, but more difficult, more for syntax, or if it's an agglutinative language, it becomes pretty quickly very complex, and you can't expect students, unless you really take it slowly, really slow the whole process down, to master all that morphosyntax at once. It might take.
I mean, yes, and I agree with you all.
I think you can.
Sort of suggesting syntax first, morphology next.
It depends. I think it depends on the language and on what your students are able to do. But I think it just I would not have a good answer for that. But I think it would just like be lower your expectations with respect to accuracy. I think that's the point, and what you can expect already at a certain moment in the developmental phase. But I think what you can do is much more look for integration of the skills, and of course they will proceed orally in a much faster pace than writing and reading. But I think the reading and the writing have to go really hand in hand, and you have to really focus on also familiarizing them with the script, recognizing the words, working on that, and then starting to add sentences and paragraphs, absolutely. But if then they make a mistake, I think that's again a nice learning opportunity for them individually, and trying to figure out, because one of the questions that you were wondering, Rajiv, is this a spelling mistake, is this a grammatical mistake? Basically, you can find out by asking them and by probing them, I guess.
Yeah, well, sometimes you do, because,
and it costs time, because it's very time intensive to do that. But I think those are the moments that probably on an individual basis are the most worthwhile, and they learn the most from it. But I think, I'm not sure whether lowering your expectations on what you can expect already on the level of accuracy, I agree with Yore there, that might be one of the things that you can consider.
Yeah. Sandhya, you were going to say something.
My question is, I mean, you're trying to impose this focus on these kinds of errors by drawing their attention on the kinds of like agreement, you know. But according to your experience, at what stage does this emerge kind of naturally? This, oh, I forgot to add something like an E here, or oh, oops, I didn't,
Yeah.
make disagreement. Or,
Yeah. So wonderful, and I made notes, and of course, like when I'm doing research on writing, it's not that I'm just drilling them to just write perfectly. My preferences are speaking too. My preferences are like, okay, maybe writing could be delayed, right? Hindi as a language, or Hindi Urdu if I may say, is also the couple of features in Hindi and Urdu which makes it even a little bit more crazy to learn is like so if you're not learning the script very well, then you are not just writing, but you're not also reading correctly, So cognitive load itself on terms of like when you are, I gave you 5 lines to read, your first thing is like focus is on form. And when you are focused on form, then you are not focused on meaning, and focus on form itself delayed you reading, so the information that you might get also would be delayed and not processed well. Of course, I agree that we have to find our preferences and priorities, that what do I want my student to be writing correctly. But when you are thinking about the 6 weeks and you are trying to teach something like at the 6th week, the students should be able to give each other's instructions, right? You have to have imperative.
That's a very high level of expectation for students.
Well, yeah, but if they can express the like I need water or I need this, and kind of a thematic curricula or the syllabi that we do, which is informed by a communicative language approach, where you have to assign a homework to and kind of bring them to their attention, even the reading. And the script, if you're not writing well, then you are not reading well. And if you are not drawing their attention on their mistakes, then that's the problem too. Of course, in terms of gender and agreement, it's easy, but what happens that so Hindi has a grammatical gender and natural gender. So of course, Billy could be masculine and feminine, but chair has to be feminine, and I don't know why. But the
It's masculine, so your guys are wrong.
Yeah, so it's like German, where the grammatical gender wins over the natural gender, where Hindi natural gender wins over grammatical gender. So if the sound a is masculine in Hindi in a grammatical gender, but ma is mother, that means feminine. So all those tussle between grammatical gender and different kinds of agreement. Plus, one feature of Hindi that really drives the student crazy in terms of learning anything, not just writing or reading, but even speaking, is future planning. Your verb, which comes in a word order of subject, object, verb that comes at the end, depends on subject which can be far away. So sometimes you will also see that students, when they are reading, so I did this in language processing research, where I did the self-paced reading task, and where I was looking for that can learner generate any kind of expectation while they are processing the sentence. So if you're looking at that cognitive load, or do they have any kind of generated expectation based on what they have read? Nothing. They have no problem in reaction time, whether they are reading a grammatical sentence or ungrammatical sentences, because the cognitive load is so high on a script that even like kind of finding a meaning out of the first reading could be challenging. And that's what I do very gradually, maybe 4th week, 5th week, 6th week. I introduce a one item in morphology and then try to practice them, give them little reading, little writing on that. And of course, I have my priorities, but I feel really bad if, like, by the 2nd year, if they are still making common mistakes in terms of writing, because each and every verb with the morphological marking is going to react differently. So it's not that one set of rule that I can teach them, it's also the pattern they have to learn every single time.
So a couple questions.
Yes.
How you teach these patterns.
So, well, here,
Okay. No.
these are the activities that I might do.
I'm not asking about the activities.
Yeah.
I'm asking the concept behind this. So when they learn, let's say, using a certain kind of verb in Hindi, they practice that same kind of verb orally in writing, in reading, and in listening, or do you separate, do they work on let's say, certain aspects in the writing and reading, then another set of aspects in the language, in the reading, in the listening and speaking? Or is it all together on the same time?
I think I never separate the activities based on the kind of verb, because like it's like very mixed. So sometimes some verbs seems to be easy to be used with certain marking, but then if you have a verb which is easy, which is not daily used verb, I do not want to include that verb in an early stage in teaching. So I'd never done that. However, this list that I just presented to you, there is a like a 1-year survey at University of Minnesota that they did, and they wrote a report, and they just suggested that while we are worried about teaching how to write, let's change the idea and use the writing for learning, right? And these are the things that they suggested. I would say that out of which, like, I do a free write a little bit, visual I do, spelling and dialogues, notes, of course I do storytelling and journal, but there are other activities that I think in my 3 days, 50 minutes classroom, it's just
a little bit much. So that's
So-
another couple of questions.
yeah.
Do you discuss, so when you teach a new topic, do you teach it in English or do you teach it in Hindi?
Well, I have a videos made all the topic like as such a grammar topic, right? It has a video which is instruction is completely in English, and they do have to watch the video, and they have to do a worksheet before they come to the class. In a classroom, they can discuss some of the questions in Hindi, but instruction I give completely in English up to the first year, 2 semesters. In second year, I change almost 80% in Hindi.
Okay. And then the third question, do you talk to your students about how you expect them to think as they're working?
No, something that I don't do. Like what
That's called metacognition. So
yeah.
metacognitive work, meaning, you know, when you're talking about, okay, these things need to fit together correctly for the sentence to be
Yeah.
correct grammatically.
Okay. Yeah, I do that.
So the idea is that you can also demonstrate
Yeah.
how to do this correctly,
Mhm.
or when you see typical mistakes by the students in their writing,
Mhm.
to note, okay, what is this typical mistake, and then go with the student through the process of
Mhm.
let's try to figure out why a person made that mistake,
Yeah.
or why people make this mistake,
Mm.
and then what is the kind of thinking that has to go through,
Mhm.
what kind of patterns need to be recognized, for example,
True.
in order to resolve this problem. And that's something that you can do.
Yeah.
That you can do from a very, very simple basic
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
Is to say, you know, and I'm not talking a simple spelling mistake. I'm talking a difference between, you know, a masculine noun and a feminine verb or something like that.
Mhm.
You know, if you want everything needs to fit correctly, right?
Mhm.
So the idea is to show this pattern and to say, okay, this is how you can practice this.
True.
This is how you can work on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that it is beneficial for you, not only in the sense of, okay, you know, this is the exercise that you do in the classroom, but when we do this exercise, these
It's
are
a
the
like
kind of things that you
meta-linguistic
need to be
talk,
doing,
yeah.
that you need to be doing so that you do this exercise correctly.
Yes.
Because, for example, my students, they want to translate all the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm tempted.
Yeah, of course, and I'm tempted too. But I tell them that it doesn't say dictionary on my forehead, so
Yeah.
therefore I'm not going to be translating for them.
Yeah.
They can go and look it up in the dictionary on their
Yeah.
phone if they want. But many times translating doesn't help. Even if you know what the verb means, if you don't understand the context in which that verb should appear,
You don't understand.
you cannot use it.
Yeah.
So what's the use of knowing that verb?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So there's a process of, okay, how do we approach this? What are the things in the context that we're looking for that would indicate to us which verb it needs to be, and then if I need to conjugate it in the masculine, feminine, singular, plural,
True.
past, present,
Yeah.
and future.
Yeah.
So that part, the metacognitive aspect of things,
Mhm.
that I do in English.
Mhm. So well, in
Talk about thinking.
yeah. Yeah.
And just building on that, and this is very old-fashioned, I hesitate to say, but like what you often see also, and again, my practice goes back to primary school, children still learning to write just a sentence, basically discover what a sentence is. It's like, I've seen some of the activities, is basically collective writing on the blackboard,
Yeah.
on the whiteboard. It's kind of like starting to write together, creating a sentence, a couple of sentences, a paragraph, and that allows for a lot of the metacognitive work that
Yeah.
like Yuri is talking about. And you could do these like in
Yeah.
10 to 15 minutes,
Yeah.
short moments, but
Yeah.
I think it involves everybody, and it might involve all aspects of the script, like also the whole morphosyntax or how words
Yeah.
are divided, how can we improve this sentence, what is missing,
Yeah.
what do we need to pay attention
True.
to. Also, that kind of collective work
Yeah.
might be beneficial.
I do that, and like if I put the class in a different group, and thanks to our MSU, we have like a blackboards all around. So they are going in a group, and I play it like a game. So you are writing, let's say, 5 sentences expressing the instruction that you want to give someone from here to go to Grand River, right, the street. And then they write it, and then the point that winner gets is like by pointing out the mistakes on the other's writing. So the whole group move to the other group, and that group comes here, and they make the list of mistakes that they are talking in English and trying to find out the morphosyntax or whatever meta-linguistic talk that they are engaged in. That's a great activity. The problem is when they produce, they are not producing it correctly. The grammatic, and that's where my question started when I said, when I make a mistake in speaking English in terms of articles and S and ES, it doesn't mean that I don't know the rule. I've just, my morphology is just missing.
With application of the rules.
Yeah, my morphology is missing.
So the question is, you know a lot of this terminology that you can use as a linguist
Yeah.
to explain these things.
Sorry.
No. I'm saying that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
In this context, the question is in the context of the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that comes into the conversation?
Yeah.
Because there could be an aspect that overwhelms the students.
True. No, I don't use the
With
linguistic stuff
terminology.
to my student,
I'm
but
saying that
yeah.
it could be because you know and understand and you look at language in a certain way, because you are a language investigator and they want to be language users.
True.
These are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be very careful
Yes.
when
Yes.
we transition between these roles. So when you're saying, what you do as a teacher, as a researcher, does it matter to what you do as a teacher? I think that it very much does.
Mm-hmm.
But we also need to be careful that it doesn't overtake.
Yeah.
things that we do as
Yeah.
teachers.
So it sounds like we could continue this conversation for quite some time, but for today, our time is up. So join me in thank you.
Thank you so much for, I hope I made some sense and did not open the Pandora box, but if you, if you help me.
Yeah, if you guys have any suggestions for further professional development,